Hi, this is Jason from Horrific Nightmares, and it's time for another controversial view. Today we're going to talk about probably one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen, and that is Beyond Valley of the Dolls. Now, before I get into the controversy, let me tell you how this came about. My friend Joe, the horror man, who also does Controversial View, actually found the Criterion, and yes, this was released on Criterion at a local thrift store, which I thought was pretty cool. He watched it and told me how crazy it was. And I believe my friend Dave Maggot also bought it. I know if he didn't buy it, he at least watched it. And he said it was crazy as well. Now, I was at a thrift store and I saw this 20th Century Fox Studio Classics pack. And I saw it had Valley of the Dolls on it and also All About Eve. And I was like, okay, so I put it in the cart and was getting ready to check out. And what I normally do is I put a bunch of stuff in the cart and then I'll check it before I leave, before we check out, which everyone should do when you're shopping at a thrift store because sometimes discs are missing or scratched or whatever. But I'm sure most people know that. So I was checking the discs of this set and I noticed it had Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. They're all on individual discs, which is pretty cool. I like it when they do that. So I was really happy to come across this and bring it home. Wasn't really sure. I know I was going to watch it with Joe because he was the one that originally suggested it. So I knew we were going to watch it. I just didn't know what for. We ended up watching it for, of course, Controversial View, which is right now. I was kind of wondering whether or not it was going to be controversial enough for the segment, but it definitely is. Now, on the back of the set, it does say it's NC-17. That's actually not the case when it came out. It got an X rating. They put NC-17 on there now because sometimes they tend to change the ratings due to the times. Some of the movies that originally got a PG, you'll now see have a PG-13 when they were originally PG when they were released or when I saw them when I was younger. So I think because of the time, it got an NC-17, which is still a pretty hard rating. This originally got an X rating. The director is Russ Myers. I'm not sure if he's still around or not, but he was considered basically a pornographer. And this movie is more or less about corruption in Hollywood. I don't want to say anything more other than the fact that it has horror elements to it. Now, Joe and Dave both said that this more or less turns into a slasher at the end of the film, and it does. So there goes your horror element and your kind of craziness of the film. But that's only to be honest, that's only scratching the surface. One of the other, well, Russ Meyer originally wanted to get this movie a hard R rating. So he turned it into Fox, still, or to the MPAA and to Fox, and he still got an X rating. And apparently, he had already cut a lot of stuff out of the film, so he was trying to put it back in since it already got an X rating, and he didn't have enough time to splice the stuff in. That's pretty much the story with that. However, the real controversy for me, I mean, of course, that's controversy as well, but the real controversy for me is the fact that this is written by Roger Ebert. Now, if that sounds familiar, there used to be a show called Siskel and Ebert, which they were two critics from the late 70s, mid to late 70s, early 80s, who would be on once a week on a television show that I watched all the time when I was younger. And actually, I still watch now. There is a bunch of tape segments that are on a certain channel and I still watch them to this day. Unfortunately, Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel both trashed horror movies, especially slashers, which they found to be incredibly offensive to women, misogynistic, um, you know, what have you. But essentially, Roger Ebert rather, wrote a slasher movie. So the hypocrisy is what gets me with this film. There's a lot of gratuitous nudity in this film, a lot of gratuitous nudity. I can only imagine what the director cut out. Um, and this already runs an hour and 49 minutes. It's probably not for the easily offended, and it's also a very, it's not a tough watch, it's just, it moves very quick. And the story is really not pieced together all that well. But this is not really a review. Just kind of trying to let you guys know what you're in for if you decide to get the Criterion, or if, like me, you came across the Studio Classics line. Um, it is not a great movie, and I think the fact that it's not a great movie, which kind of makes me laugh, and the fact that Roger Ebert, who really spoke negatively about slasher movies of the 80s, to the point where they even had a special. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel did a special on horror movies and how bad they were and how. And I remember this quote, this exact quote: "These movies hate women." He used to say that constantly. I just think it's funny that he actually wrote a slasher movie. Now, another little piece of information for people who care is that this movie was written, of course, by Roger Ebert over a period of 6 months. And in that 6 months, the Tate murders happened. Um, so, a little bit of context to the film. But this is a wild one. Definitely, if you are not easily offended, I would check this one out. It's an interesting film. It's not a film I'll be returning to very often, but it is entertaining in its way, in its own way. There's a lot of very overly dramatized characters in this film. So just keep in mind what you're watching, and don't forget to check out Joe's controversial view of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which is actually not a sequel to The Valley of the Dolls. It actually has a disclaimer in the very beginning. Like I said, we only give a taste. Read more about this film. It's very, very interesting. If you like what you see in here, hit that like button and subscribe. And until next time, peace.